Test, test. Can people hear me now? Yes. Okay. Perfect. Good morning. All right. We are going to get started here in about a minute. How is everyone? Happy Friday. Oh my gosh, I cannot believe it's Friday. Crazy. GM. Let's see what's been happening in crypto lately. There's only so much news. All right, let me go ahead and start sharing my screen and let's go ahead and get started. Okay, perfect. All right. Hello. Awesome. We have a lot to get through, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. And as you'll see, this presentation is hopefully going to be more discussion oriented. So I definitely want to hear from you guys. If you have any feedback, just jump into the chat, and we'll go ahead and address that. Okay. So our current agenda is I'm going to go over some of the current work that we've been doing. And then the majority actually want to talk about our bridge dependence. So the current work has been Easy KYC. So Easy KYC is pretty much done. I see that someone's trying to get on stage to speak. Let me get through this presentation and let's go ahead and use the chat for all discussions. Anyway, so as I was saying, we have been working in Easy KYC for quite some time and it's pretty much there. We're kind of working through our launch strategy, but in terms of the product itself, it's still not fully launched. It's still like a work in progress, but you can check it out right now, easykyc.xyz. And I went over this last time, but the reason why we're so excited about this is because it's actually a KYC service that uses your knowledge proofs. We're partnering with self.xyz to do this. And again, one of the pain points for Ironfish has been how do we do compliant airdrops or etc. And right now the way to do that is unfortunately through a full-blown KYC process. So Easy KYC, we partner with Self. The idea is that you can actually prove that you are not a NoFX sanctioned individual with completely using these launch proofs. Nothing's ever revealed by your KYC process. It's again, we're partnering with Self. It's quite an amazing product. You effectively use your phone to tap your passport, and they're about to have support for driver licenses and other ID cards as well. And your phone actually checks whether or not your passport was signed by an appropriate government authority. And then you can literally make attestations in zero knowledge proofs about where you're from, whether or not you're on the OFAC sanctions list or not, whether or not you have a legit passport or not, completely in a zero knowledge proof encrypted state. And we basically are making a product around this. So you could do KYC that's effectively free using a decentralized zero knowledge proof product. And so we've made it extremely easy to use. You can literally use social login. Right now we're supporting Google. We're just using Alchemy for this. You can use your wallet, etc. And then you'll have a view both from the company's perspectives. Like let's say if you're trying to KYC a bunch of grant recipients, etc., you could do that. And then you also see a subsequent view. If you are going through the KYC process yourself, you'll see a different view. So this has been a project we've been working on some time. It's pretty much there, and we'll launch it fairly shortly. It's going to probably get like a facelift, and we'll do a copy change, etc. Okay, so yes, you can use it now. Again, it's not fully launched, so it needs some polishing touches, but largely the product is there, which is awesome. Okay, so this is kind of where I want to spend most of the time. So the current situation is that the Chainport Bridge is currently unavailable to users through the Node app and through the OreoScan browser wallet. So what has happened there is that Chainport has pushed an upgrade and a broker integration with the Node app. They did give us warning, and we tried to match their timelines, but the documentation they gave us did not match reality. So we went back and forth with them for a long time. And the lead engineer who we've been working on the Chainport side has literally he left for a vacation. He'll be back next week. So we're kind of in this pending zone of Chainport Bridge currently not being available. So the short-term solution is we do have a workaround solution. We have 2 engineers who are working to get it out ASAP. So that's good. But, obviously it's bad that the Chainport Bridge is down. That's, but the fact that we have a solution, that part is good. But it really does raise a question of, okay, well, what is our long-term resolution? Because dependence on one bridge is definitely a single point of failure. And given that our goal is to bring privacy to all assets, what other solutions can we look at so that we have more of a long-term, solution that doesn't have a single point of failure? And so this is like a discussion that we're going through currently right now, like internally for Ironfish. But I do want to kind of turn the tables around and ask you guys for your opinions as well. So the things that we are thinking of, actually, sorry, we have like 3 to 4-ish long-term solutions that we're considering. We definitely want your input. And actually what we're going to do is after this presentation, probably like a Monday, we'll do a poll that will give the community roughly 2 weeks to cast their vote with a lot more explanation around every single direction and kind of how we're thinking about these directions, and really get input from the community about what you want to see in terms of Ironfish and its direction. So the possible solutions of trying to get rid of this reliance on a single bridge for Ironfish success is, first solution is we can try and find another bridge provider, so we can have multiple bridge providers. And I'll go through the solution in a moment, but this is probably my least favorite solution, almost like a non-solution, because I don't want to have like fragmentation in liquidity, because that's exactly what we're going to get with multiple bridges. It will be kind of in a similar problem, and then also it took us a very long time to find Chainport to begin with, so I don't really see this as a solution, to be honest. The second solution is we can build our own bridge, which we have thought of in the past. The third solution is we can revive our EVM layer project. I'll go into this in more details in just a moment. And then the fourth solution is we can launch privacy pools as smart contracts on top major EVM chains. So the first solution that I want to talk about is finding another bridge provider. So the requirements for us to work with a bridge provider are, so like they have to support the UTXO chain. They have to be comfortable with working with Ironfish in the regard that it is a privacy chain. And the third requirement is that they need to have some sort of a screening system so that we're not going to get in the same trouble that Tornado Cash did. And unfortunately, that's just really hard to find. So when we did the search last time, it took us 6 to 12 months to find even a single bridge provider. And we literally found 2. So Chainport was one of them. There was another bridge that we were considering. Yeah, it was just extremely, extremely difficult, and very not a fruitful path. And again, as I mentioned, even if we were to have another bridge provider, we would have fragmentation and liquidity, and we really wouldn't be rulers of our own destiny in terms of this reliance on another bridge. So the second option is we could consider building our own UTXO to EVM bridge. And this is actually something that we have seriously considered in the past. The question is well, why didn't we do this originally? And we didn't do this originally because we launched Ironfish mainnet right after the Tornado Cash was sanctioned, right before the founders were arrested. And so the regulatory landscape was just very tough for projects in general. And so even though we have a full prototype of this bridge fully implemented, we kind of abandoned that path altogether. So the question is, well, why would we be more comfortable doing this now? And there's 2 reasons for why. One is there are chains like Base and Binance that actually have their own on-chain verification system in place. So for instance, Binance has, I think it's called Binance Verify, if I'm not mistaken. And effectively, you have the ability to prove that you are a Binance verified customer on chain. So by proxy, you can assume, okay, if you have been verified by Binance, then you're probably not on the OFAC sanctions list. And then chains like Base, they have a similar product as well called Coinbase On-Chain Verify. And again, you can verify they're a Coinbase customer. So we're starting to see that chains are doing more native verification systems And if we were to do our own bridge, we could plug into those verification systems to get more comfortable with launching our own bridge. So so the other reason is why we would consider this now is the regulatory environment is indeed way better. This is both for crypto as well as for privacy projects. And yes, and we could kind of plug into those on-chain verification systems. So the pros obviously is we would be way more in control over our own kind of bridge destiny. We could make our own product decisions. We could make our own decisions about what chains we support, when to upgrade, kind of, everything. The cons is it would be a centralized bridge. That's probably what we would launch with in the short term because it's the easiest way to do that. And honestly, it would be kind of non-trivial to maintain this bridge. So a lot of our engineering efforts, if not all of them, would be kind of going towards maintaining this bridge. So that's like the pros and cons here of it sounds like a good idea, but I think like the engineering effort here, would be pretty dramatic. It is still a possibility and an option, but definitely gonna have to consider there would be a full-blown project here. So the third solution is we could revive our EVM layer on Ironfish project. So what does this mean? So we have been thinking about this idea for quite some time as well. And we even have a prototype of this idea. So Daniel, who's still at the Ironfish Foundation, has done this prototype a year and a half ago at this point, but it's definitely proof of concept. And the idea is that we would have an EVM layer on Ironfish such that you have a UTXO privacy layer with the EVM public layer. So yeah, the idea would be that we would have an EVM layer integrated right next to the UTXO layer. So everything on the EVM layer would be public, everything on the Ironfish layer would be private, and you would basically have like a glue layer of transferring your assets from the EVM layer into the privacy layer and vice versa. So how does this help with bridges? Because it does sound like a completely different project. It does help with bridges quite a bit because once we have an EVM layer, it'll be so much easier for us to work with other bridge providers that already support other EVM chains. It'll just be a very much easier partnership for us to find. So the pros and cons for this, obviously the pro is we have an EVM layer, that's pretty great. We'll have a wider selection of possible bridge operators to work with, that's pretty great. The con is it would be long to build. I'm not sure how long, but even with the prototype EVM project that we have, it will require a full-blown hard fork for sure. It would require a ton of testing because this would be a consensus change. It would just be like a pretty fundamental change to Ironfish. It's all doable. It's just more of a question of are we willing to put in the time, resources, and all the effort, the hard work to do this? And the answer would very much be yes. We would just need to be very cognizant of the overall cost in terms of like time, efficiency, and energy to do this. And then the other kind of con is it would still, in my opinion, be a very kind of confusing, cumbersome user experience because the user flow would very much be I'm going from an EVM chain, like let's say Base. I'm first going to bridge to the Ironfish EVM side, which is fully public, and then would manually have to transfer those funds from the Ironfish EVM layer to the Ironfish privacy layer to make it private. So it'd just be like 3 steps just to get to the privacy layer. And in my opinion, that would be a really high friction user flow for people to go through. Again, this is like, one of the things that I would love to hear the community opinion on. But it's like one of those things where it's like it might make sense for us to do it, but I'm not sure if it'll be the best user experience. Okay, cool. And then the fourth solution is launching a privacy pool on some of the top EVM chains. So effectively what that would look like is we would package Ironfish Privacy Core Mechanism as a smart contract. So think Tornado Cash, but obviously better. And we would launch it as privacy pools on Base, Binance Chain, and we can consider a few others like OP and Arbitrum. And then the reason why I would choose Base and Binance specifically, and then potentially others, is because again, those 2 chains do have an on-chain verification system that we could use. So we could say, if you are verified through Binance or Base, then you can then you can use the privacy pool. So the pros and cons here is pros, launching as a smart contract does give the user a lot more flexibility to interact both with the privacy layer and with DeFi. So like what we've seen with Ironfish, and honestly what we've seen with projects like Aztec, who are not yet launched but about to launch, is that the bridging is such high friction for users that most people don't do it. At least not just to get access to privacy. So if you were to play something like a privacy smart contract on chain, obviously with Tornado Cash, we've seen, pretty great product market fit, because it was on chain, it wasn't the same block space, and people could interact with DeFi a lot easier without any bridging, bridging requirements. So I think that's actually a pretty strong pro. The con is we would need to figure out different tokenomics for the Iron Coin. And I'm not sure what that is. Like, some of the obvious ideas is you could do rev share for profits from transaction fees. So if you are an Iron holder, we could figure out a mechanic that you would share in the revenue from the transaction fees from those privacy pools. That's just like one idea, but we kind of have to do a pretty broad brainstorm of what do we do with the Iron token currently? How do we make sure that the Iron holders benefit from us doing this direction? But to be honest, I'm kind of biased. I would prefer this direction the most because, again, I'm kind of seeing how these privacy projects are working out. And like, we have to be honest with ourselves. Like, Penumbra is another privacy protocol, and I think their adoption is, again, fairly minimal. Aleo, as we know, they raised a ton of money. They're a big project, but I would say their adoption is also pretty minimal. Aztec is another one that's about to probably launch this year. I think Aztec is a great project, but they, the biggest thing going for them is Noir, in my opinion. I think they're also going to struggle for user adoption. So I think this direction, to me, is the most exciting one. But again, this is my biased view, so would love to hear other people's thoughts. So in terms of next steps, Ironfish has gone through tons of ups and downs, to say to say the least. And the fact that you're all here is quite amazing. And I want to make sure that your voice is heard in terms of the ability to decide the fate of Ironfish. So we'll be posting a poll, and I'll write up a lot more kind of thoughts on each of the 4 directions. But really, I want to hear from you in terms of what do you want, what's the direction that you want Ironfish to go into, and how should we kind of spend our time, resources, energy, and focus on. So I think that's it. Let me read through some of the comments. Okay, Dave Blay says, user privacy versus privacy. I think privacy comes on top. There's other simple coins that is easy for user experience, but IF is the only coin where privacy is always put first. That is true. I mean, I'm kind of proud of that as well. I think Ironfish is, in my opinion, probably the most pure, pure privacy project out there, in terms of our philosophy of sticking to proof of work, our philosophy on making sure every single transaction is encrypted. We're supporting multi-asset, which our Zcash still doesn't have. So I think, yes, Ironfish has always put privacy first. We can continue doing privacy first, even with the 4th direction that I mentioned, which is privacy pools on EVM chains. And we could make a very strong stance that we never compromise on privacy, and we want to bring the Ironfish core privacy mechanism to other chains. But yes, I do agree with that. That is a great point as well. The other comment from chat is, just as IF balances privacy with regulatory compliance, it needs to share privacy with user experience. Some of the community are wondering whether the project is on hold. Could you clarify whether Ironfish is still moving forward and what stages you're currently in? That's a great question as well. I to some extent, the answer potentially might be yes, but this is one of the choices that we would make that would definitely revive the project because all the directions that I mentioned are going to be pretty heavy engineering lifts that we would definitely need to hire for, and would definitely that would be a pretty big bet for us. So Houston, to your question, could you clarify whether or not Ironfish is still moving forward? it is still currently moving forward. You are totally correct that it does feel like the project is on hold. We have been more in the maintenance mode. Again, we've been working on things like easy KYC, etc., but those aren't the main focus of Ironfish. But I think like having Chainport integration break is kind of like a blessing in disguise, because it's really forcing us to think, okay, like we can't continue having this pending situation for Ironfish. How do we make sure that it is delivering on its vision, and it's really pressing that issue with a current kind of Chainport bridge being down issue. All right, the other comment was, it's definitely not super easy for user or for developers, but its privacy framework has always been super strong. I like your bias and how you explained it. The tokenomics change sounds a bit scary, but it sounds like it has a lot of growth room. That is true. That is, and that's, I did call it out as a big con of like, we would have to rethink how tokenomics works if we were to go with this fourth direction of having privacy pools on chains. But I don't think it's an unsolvable issue. I think it's a problem that would require more thought. And honestly, I think like we should start taking higher bets and experimenting more to see what other things we can do that would work. So the question is, what kind of tokenomic changes are you considering? So this is really dependent on this direction that we're going to go next. So for instance, if we're going to be launching privacy pools on EVM chains, then effectively we would be taking the Ironfish core privacy mechanism and putting it on other chains. So the question is, how do we make sure that iron holders still benefit from us putting all the effort into this direction? And I don't know the answer to that yet. I think we can solve that answer, but it would just be something that would really have to consider in terms of tokenomics and how that would change to make sure that iron holders still benefit from this direction. But this is not decided yet. We're going to do a poll probably on Monday for people to kind of see all the directions. Okay, another comment. I like privacy pools on other chains or doing our own EVM. Finding multiple chain ports sounds like a headache. I have doing its own EVM sounds cool too, though. I do agree with that. Yeah, I mean, so Daniel, who again is still in the Ironfish Foundation, he actually did a full-blown prototype of what it would look like for Ironfish to have an EVM layer. So it's not insurmountable. It's more like we would put a ton of effort, and I'm not sure if the user experience is still going to be that good. Like, I think it's going to be kind of a rough user experience. Do you have a prototype available to show? That's a great question. I know Daniel did presentations. I'm not sure if we recorded any of them. I don't know if we do. So it is technically a branch on the Ironfish repository still, but yeah, unfortunately, I don't think Daniel recorded any of it. So it would be kind of hard to recreate. It's more of like, trust me, it does work, but it didn't work fully. So it was a prototype just to kind of show that you can have a UTXO layer with EVM layer. But there was still a lot of work to be done in terms of like changing the networking layer to support other transaction types, doing a different transaction type altogether for mining. So there was like a lot of work. It was just like a prototype that it could be done. There's a lot of cool features backlogged in IF. It would be cool to add more features on us and depend less on other chains. I think if we were to go the direction of privacy pools on other chains, we would take a dependence on other chains, but I actually think it would be way easier to maintain. I wish another comment. Warthog is a good example of why depending on other chains can be bad. Okay, I need to look into that project. I'm not familiar with that. Oh, interesting. I don't know if we would have sandwich tax here. I would have to think about it. For what it's worth, chains like Base don't allow sandwiching. So they're actually partnering with Flash blocks to make MEV only, like you can only back run, but you can't front run, which is kind of an interesting choice. Oh, okay. But ego is clouding them, and they're trying to fork or shut down wallets, and it's pretty rough. Okay, good to know. I'll look into that project. All right, we have one more comment coming in, and then I think we can probably end there. Oh, the comment is gone. Oh, they're still typing. Okay. What is your perspective on RWA chains? Do they even make sense, or would it be possible to just tokenize real world assets on Ironfish? So that's a great question. RWAs are definitely taking a lot of traction. The problem with RWAs is that they typically don't create a lot of volume. So they could, like on paper, bring a lot of TVL in, but they typically don't trade. So it's interesting. I think, like in the past, we've definitely explored it. But I'm not sure if we would be able to support them in Ironfish. Oh gosh, we're in marketing. Oh man. You know what? I would love to hear your opinion how we could be doing better at marketing, because I've heard that question a lot, and I want to understand, like, what in your opinion is great marketing? Like, is it going to events? Is it doing hackathons? Is it doing more Twitter? Is it doing, like, I don't know, like more swag giveaways, etc.? So I would love to kind of hear from you of what you want to see more from us, but like more specific than just win marketing. Yeah, that is actually still happening. That's still in development. So that's a project that Michelle and Daniel are currently working on. I saw a demo of what they've built so far yesterday. It's still a work in progress, but we're getting there. I agree with that as well. The comment was, I think IF has unique selling points, and we need to focus on them and create a strong community of believers. That is true. Like I think, again, Ironfish is probably one of the more pure, ideologically, like philosophically aligned projects in the crypto space right now, potentially to a fault, but we have pretty much never compromised on privacy. We've never compromised on decentralization, or how we are building Ironfish to incentivize decentralization more. So I definitely agree with that, and yeah, that sounds good. I think I'll talk to Michelle, who's actually been driving our Twitter, to make sure we really focus on that. Okay, well, thank you all so much. I hope you have an amazing Friday. And like I said, I'll follow up probably on Monday for a poll to hear your opinion about these directions. All right. Happy Friday, everyone.